So I know it's a problem separating the wheat from the chaff. And I think you did a great job of satirizing that in what you wrote. But that doesn't help us solve the problem of the fact that there is value in great fiction.
I don't view that as a problem. I think it's obvious that there's value in it, but it's not the value of telling you how the cosmos works or what is likely to happen in the future, right? It's a different kind of value. It's not a surrogate for a scientific theory about anything.
Right.
That's what
Absolutely.
religion does with it.
Well, that I would say that fine. I've got no disagreement with you there. The thing about the fundamentalists, say the Christian fundamentalists, who insist upon a literal understanding of the biblical stories, is that they don't know what literal means. And actually, they're better scientists in some sense than the scientists themselves, because the scientists would never say that the stories in Genesis are scientific, but the fundamentalists, implicitly assuming that only scientific fact can be true, attempt constantly to force these stories into a scientific framework where they do not belong.
Right, but again, the because the stories are believed to be, we're talking specifically about the Judeo-Christian tradition, because they're believed to be revealed truth, right? I mean, these are not stories written by human beings. These are the word of God in some form. These are not held to be stories. These are held to be records of things that have actually happened. So they're history books on one level. And when they talk about what will happen, when they're obviously given to prophecy, they are an indication of what will happen if you believe God is talking to you. And that's where the whole thing becomes so pathological from an intellectual point of view.
I agree with you. This is partly why I've spent so much time studying Nietzsche. I mean, in the late 1900s, Nietzsche basically diagnosed Christianity. He said that it had produced a tremendous longing for the truth, which was then used against the dogmatic elements of Christianity, which it destroyed.
Mhm.
But some of it's, I would say, some of it is intense philosophical confusion. It's like there's a kind of, let's call it wisdom in fiction if we don't want to call it truth, because obviously calling it truth brings up the fact issue. Let's call it wisdom. The wisdom is clearly there, but to consider it as a representation of the factual world is not only a mistake, but also a dangerous mistake. And it's a self-defeating mistake. It's partly why the fundamentalists who insist upon the equivalence of the stories in Genesis and scientific theory do their own creed a tremendous disservice, and they're bound to lose, because the Bible as science is weak and science as science is strong. And so there's no hope there for people who are trying to push fundamentalist Christian stories as literally true. So we can agree on that. What I'm trying to do, well, I would say what I'm trying to do in mythological language is I'm trying to raise my father out of the belly of the beast, out of the belly of the whale in the depths of the ocean, because there's living truth in our traditions, obscured as that is by human ignorance and inability to conceive even. That doesn't mean that it can be left behind. It can't be. It has to be brought forward and updated and given new sight, which, by the way, is exactly what happens in the Egyptian stories, because Horus, the eye of attention, goes down into the underworld and rescues the god of tradition, Osiris, and gives him sight. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. And I think I've been successful at it. And so, yes, the interpretation problem is a major one, but that's something that bedevils everything, absolutely everything.